Hi and welcome back to another video. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Lamont. I'm a New Jersey business litigation and real estate attorney. I make videos like this to help explain some of the nuances and confusing aspects of the law so that you have a better understanding of the legal system. In today's video, I'm going to be going back to a topic that I talked about a few days ago, or a few videos ago, which is arbitration and litigation. Now, if you haven't watched this video, I'll put a link to the description below, but in the last video, we talked about the difference between arbitration and mediation, and in that video, I made some comments concerning whether or not I think that arbitration or alternative dispute resolution is a better alternative to litigation. And I said in that video that I was on the fence and that I'd talk about it in another video, and here I am today talking about it. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about my opinion concerning the benefit, the pros and the cons of arbitration versus litigation. Now, if you need more information, you can check out some of the other videos that I've done about arbitration, mediation. But just to summarize very quickly, arbitration is a process where you and the parties that you're in the dispute with select a neutral third-party arbitrator, and that arbitrator looks at evidence and hears testimony and then makes a decision, and whatever that arbitrator's decision is, you're bound by it. It's a binding decision. There's no grounds or room for you to appeal that decision if you think that you think it's a wrong decision. Only in rare instances can you ever overturn an arbitration ruling, and it really comes down to whether or not the arbitrator was unduly influenced or committed fraud. And in all my years of practicing, I've never seen that happen. So let's look now at the difference between arbitration and litigation, and then I'll give you my thoughts as to what's better and why. So with arbitration, we've already talked about the fact that it's binding. It's a binding decision by the arbitrator. Is it more cost effective? This is one of my biggest problems with arbitration. I don't really see it. With civil litigation, depending on your state and the court, maybe it's $250 to file a complaint in the general litigation part. Like, for example, in New Jersey, that's the law division. Or maybe if you're filing a federal complaint in federal court, it's $500. Maybe some states have reduced prices, $150, $200. But the bottom line is that the most I've ever seen in a civil litigation matter for a filing fee, the most is $500. And that's, again, more on the federal level versus the state level. State, I see typically $250 to $300. That gets your case filed. That gets your complaint in the court, and then you get a process server, depending upon where you're serving your complaint. Maybe it's another $50 to $100 to serve it. So, let's say that you're in state court, you pay $300 to file your complaint, another $100 to serve your complaint. Now your case is underway. And now you've got the possibility of the defendant getting an attorney and maybe reaching out to try to resolve the matter quickly, or to at least have a discussion about whether or not this is something that could settle down the line. But we're talking $400, you're in this thing. Now the fees for arbitration can be much, much higher. We recently had a commercial arbitration where my client had to pay $1,750 to initiate their arbitration proceeding. And, it's kind of shocking that on the front end of an arbitration, you have to shell out that kind of money. Now, is it like this in every arbitration? No, there were a lot of factors in my client's case that raised the price. And I'm not talking about legal fees, by the way. I'm talking about filing fees. Fees that the arbitration association require you to pay. So when I talked about the court fees earlier, again, it's court filing fees, and now this is arbitration filing fees. So I have seen significantly higher costs to file an arbitration than to file a civil litigation matter. Sometimes it's double, sometimes it's triple. And so when you're looking at a cost-effective measurement for the initiation of a legal proceeding, arbitration, in my experience, costs more money to initiate. You are out of pocket earlier, you're paying much more than if you file a civil litigation case. Okay, now, overall, the process of arbitration is supposed to be more cost-effective, overall. So the argument is that, yes, you pay these higher upfront fees in arbitration, but then the process is streamlined and you get to a resolution quicker with less cost. So at that point, your attorney's fees arguably are going to be reduced in arbitration. Again, I don't know that that is necessarily the case, because depending upon the nature of your matter, you might have as much work to do to establish your facts in your case in an arbitration that you would in litigation. You might end up spending close to the same amount of time arguing over things. I've been in arbitrations where the other side argues admissibility of evidence that was submitted, or argues over whether or not all of the evidence was provided, or a whole host of things. You can still send out subpoenas in arbitration. Most of the time you need to get the arbitrator's permission, but that process is very similar to litigation. So from an attorney fees standpoint, maybe it's a little cheaper. But again, depending upon the matter and the parties involved, I don't see it as being wow, I just saved 50% off of my legal fees had I litigated this case in court. I don't see it. I think it's a minor reduction in possible fees. All right, so we talked about money. We talked about the filing fees being more in arbitration than in civil litigation. We talked about the cost saving on attorney's fees, and I said that in arbitration you might save a little money, but it's negligible, in my opinion, for attorney's fees. Now we're going to talk about the speed at which matters are resolved, arbitration versus litigation. So the arbitration process is pared down, right? There's not as much opportunity to file motions and to drag a case out. But that said, again, depending upon the nature of your case and the parties involved, it is not out of the question to have an arbitration last a year. I've had arbitrations last over a year with delays from the arbitrator or adjournment extension requests from the parties involved. It is very similar in that sense to litigation, that, yeah, the idea is it's going to move more quickly, but the reality of it is that it could still be a year. Now, what are we looking at in litigation? Again, complexity, nature of the matter, the parties involved. I would say that on average, most civil litigation matters in the main trial court in New Jersey, I'm going to say average about a year to a year and a half. So maybe you're saving 6 months off of resolution in arbitration versus civil litigation. But again, it depends on so many factors. I can't sit here and make a blanket statement that arbitration is that much faster than litigation. All right, but here's the biggest issue that I have with arbitration. Arbitration is binding, as I said before, meaning whatever the arbitrator decides, you're stuck with. Now, most arbitrators are competent, and you have an opportunity in an arbitration to select the arbitrator that you think would best serve your case, right? But the parties have to agree. But everybody is capable of making a mistake. We're all human. And judges make mistakes, arbitrators make mistakes, you and I make mistakes. So mistakes happen, right? And when an arbitrator makes a decision, even if you feel that a mistake was made, there's no ability to go back and to look at that and say, I think you made a mistake. I want to appeal this arbitration ruling because I don't think you considered this piece of evidence or this testimony. It is what it is. You're stuck with it. And that's not how it is in civil litigation. In civil litigation, when you get a ruling from a judge, if you feel that the judge erred or made a mistake, you have opportunities to file a motion for reconsideration or a motion to re-argue a matter. And then ultimately, if the judge did make a mistake, you have the right or the ability to appeal. Now, that doesn't mean that every appeal is accepted, but you've got that ability. You have that possibility of saying, listen, a serious mistake was made. The judge erred on a ruling of law, and now I want to appeal that. He didn't consider this factor, or this judge overlooked this piece of evidence. You can appeal. So from a resolution standpoint, you might get quicker resolution because the arbitrator makes a decision, and whether it's wrong or right, or you feel that it's just or unjust, you're stuck with it and you can't appeal. Whereas in a civil matter, a civil litigation matter, you could appeal if there was a problem, that the judge made an actual mistake. So I think that there is a benefit in civil litigation where you can make sure that if there's a mistake, you can try to get that corrected through filing an appeal, through the appellate process. So we looked at three things. We looked at the initial filing cost, and I say arbitration is more expensive than litigation. Then we looked at the overall cost of attorney's fees. I said that arbitration might be slightly cheaper on attorney's fees, but again, it is really dependent on the arbitrator, the facts of the case, and the parties involved. If it is cheaper on attorney's fees, it's not by a tremendous amount. It's a negligible amount. And then third, we looked at the ability to correct a mistake or an error. And in arbitration, like I said, you're stuck with the arbitrator's ruling, whereas in civil litigation, you could seek an appeal and see if you could get an incorrect decision overturned. From a time perspective, we looked at the time involved between arbitration and litigation, and I said that I've had arbitrations that have lasted a year, and civil litigation typically averages between a year to a year and a half for most standard type cases, nothing overly complex. So again, you're not saving all that much time on arbitration versus litigation. So overall, my opinion, and again, this is my opinion and nothing more. You'll find people have different opinions on arbitration all the time. So I don't want you to take what I'm saying as the be-all, end-all. This is just my opinion from my experience. If I had a client that had a choice to arbitrate or litigate, I would probably tell them that you have a better opportunity to litigate, or a better opportunity to resolve your matter by litigation versus arbitration. And I think it's more fair as a process overall. And I think that you've got a greater ability to really explore the facets of your case that can help you either prove or disprove a matter. And then ultimately, if an error of law is made, you do have the ability to file an appeal in the court. So again, personal opinion, personal feelings, I like civil litigation more than arbitration. It's not a matter of, because I know that some people will think, well, of course an attorney is going to say they like civil litigation more because they stand to make more money. That's not what my opinion is based on. I've seen and have had clients who've paid more money in fees for an arbitration than they would have if we had filed a complaint in the court. So it's not based on that. It's based on what I've seen. Now, there are times you just can't get out of arbitration. Maybe you sign a contract or an agreement and there's an arbitration provision in it. You're stuck. There's nothing you can do for the most part. But if you have the ability to make a decision, arbitration or litigation, I suggest that you talk to an attorney and figure out what is going to be the best route for you in order to move your case along and to have a fair shake at proving your case or defending your case. I mean, obviously, a defendant, you're kind of guided by what the plaintiff does. If the plaintiff files an arbitration, you might be stuck arbitrating that. You know, if you're the plaintiff, you kind of have the upper hand in the sense of, I can make a decision so long as I'm not bound by a contract that forces me to go to arbitration. I can make a decision, arbitration or litigation. So again, my opinion is that I think litigation gives you a better chance at resolution. Sometimes you get lucky, you file a complaint, the other side realizes that you've got a good case and they want to try to resolve it. You know, I've had plenty of cases settle before the defendant has had to file an answer. So within 30 days, you know, the other side would call up and say, look, I got your lawsuit, how can we resolve this? So that happens frequently. I'm not going to say that every case that comes in, that's how it resolves. We've taken cases to trial and cases that have lasted 2 years, 2.5 years. But overall, based on my experience and just the law of averages, I think that civil litigation is better than arbitration. But I encourage you to learn more about it. Watch some of the other videos that I've done on arbitration and alternative dispute resolution. Ultimately, if you have questions, call a lawyer, talk to them, ask them. You know, obviously, this is just to help you. This isn't legal advice, so you shouldn't take this and say, you know, arbitration's horrible because this guy says it is. This is my opinion. So I encourage you to, you know, develop your own opinion. Talk to people, talk to other lawyers, and you know, get your own thoughts together and make your own opinions based on experience. And this goes for lawyers as well, not just for, you know, because we have lawyers that subscribe to the channel, and you know, if you're a young lawyer and you have to discuss with your client whether or not you should file an arbitration or litigation, you know, keep those factors that we talked about in mind, and you know, draw your own conclusions, make your own judgments on it. But just wanted to share my thoughts with you on this. Make sure that you check out some of the other videos on this topic, and if there's any questions or comments that you have about this video or any others or topics that you'd like to see me discuss, just please leave a comment in the description or a comment to this video, and you know, I'll try to get a video to address your particular topic. All right, that's going to do it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me. Please make sure you subscribe, ring the notification bell so you know when other videos are released, and share the channel with your friends, family, and colleagues. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.